Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Digital Artcast. Coming fast off the heels of the last one we've just done recently. Another great guest on for you this week. Again, changing up what we've been doing and trying to bring in guests that are a bit more varied and ranged in the types of art and entertainment and design that they do. We've typically had on concept artists, we've had on 3D artists, some art directors, people who've worked in character art. And then most recently, we spoke to Luke Whitelock, who was a set designer for the movie industry and worked in London on movies like Ghostbusters and stuff. But something that I have took an interest in recently and really wanted to dive more into was user interface design and user experience design, also known as UI and UX. Now, this is something, again, that you guys might be familiar with, where the screen graphics that you have on your video games when you play them, the things that tell you about your life counters, the ammo you have left, things like that, are things that kind of go overlooked in the industry, but it's such an essential and probably even more important aspect of the game than people really let on. So I brought on what I consider an expert in this field and someone that has had experience doing this kind of thing for a long time. So today, I want to introduce my very amazing guest for coming on, Mr. Fernando Forero. So, hi Fernando, how you doing?
Hi, thank you. Fine. A little bit busy with things, with the family and work, and starting the new year, and many things are happening around, and trying to get focus on my work, on my
Yeah. But yeah, busy. Yeah, I can imagine it's one of these things where, for whatever reason, I think it's maybe because sometimes usually companies now are getting more accustomed to letting people take Christmas and New Year off or take holidays over that period because they've got families and whatever else.
Yeah.
Then when it comes back to January, I think because things have maybe been left a couple of weeks, there's the mad dash to catch up and get things running again and up to speed.
Yeah.
So again, we're going to talk about your experience, but again, firstly, congratulations on Diablo 4 and your involvement in that. I'm sure it's been a great project to be part of and something that's been amazing to work on over the years. Definitely the team at Blizzard are one of my closest family members because, when I first got in the industry and I was first networking and trying to meet people, I was going through LinkedIn and I was adding everybody who worked at Blizzard and just trying to add them and not talk to them. But eventually I'd be like, I've run a podcast, I'd love to do. So I've had a lot of Blizzard guests on over the years and guys who've formerly worked there or previously worked there. So Blizzard is near and dear to my heart. I think we probably just want to address really quickly as well at the start because people might taper off towards the end, but we're recording this as of January 29th. And unfortunately, a couple of days ago, Blizzard suffered a really big loss of employment. A lot of guys let go. Nearly 2,000 people lost their jobs across Activision and Blizzard. And that's been pretty brutal. Just really quickly, you don't have to go too in depth about it. I know it's probably something you're also processing at this time, but how's the last couple of days been for you?
It's pretty difficult. It's, look, I guess that the industry is something that I am thinking all the time is these industries, or the industries of entertainment, is not only the name of the companies, it's the people that create the product.
Yes.
And there is a plenty of value in these things affect emotionally their lives. It affects the way how they will approach next projects. I myself, I was years ago when I was living in Hamburg here in Germany, I was hired to work in a big project, building a AAA studio and working in a new IP and making something cool and really interesting, in nice city, nice people. Everything was so cool. And then the project was canceled. The studio was shut down, and most of the people in the studio has gone. So at that time, I was close to the people, and you have conversation, and in some way, the sadness, the thoughts, the processing of the loss, you are sharing it with people around you.
Yep.
And in some way you find some kind of strength in the thoughts of the other, listening the other, and allowing yourself to give from yourself your feelings. But in this specific time, I'm abroad. Blizzard is in the States. I am in Leipzig in Germany, and all my team is there. So I had to process these things by myself alone and guessing things, sending messages to people that I care of.
Yes.
It's a different dynamic, but in general, it's a sad time.
Yes.
And it's a sad time not only for Blizzard, but you are hearing how the industry of technology and the industry of video games and many sectors in the industry of creativity that where creativity is involved is affected for these kind of situations where people lost their jobs.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of these things that, you know, I've been dealing with that as well because, you know, again, a lot of my initial friends in the industry were people at Blizzard, and I managed to, just before the pandemic hit in 2019, I was over in Irvine, California, and I got to do finally a kind of studio tour. I got to meet a lot of the guys that I'd spoke to online, and I got to meet them in person and catch up with them. So yeah, it definitely is a thing where even as someone who hasn't worked at that level quite yet, you know, I know people at that level, and it is difficult trying to console them and talk to them about how it's affecting them. And, you know, I'm lucky I've set up a Discord where a couple hundred people have flocked in from the guys that have been let off from both Riot and Blizzard, and we've been in there, you know, talking with each other and consoling and helping people prep CVs and get their portfolios up and running.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that I've seen, which is the most beautiful about this industry, is the fact of how many people have came together when it's happened and, you know, took time out their schedule to set up meetups and help people with their CVs and get recommendations on their LinkedIn. So yeah, and I want to, you know, shadow the interview with that for too long, but yeah, I think it's definitely these things where we're both thinking of people that we've worked with and people that we know, and just hoping that everybody lands on their feet and you know, the industry can kind of learn from this. Yeah.
And I guess that everything depends in the conditions of everyone. If they are families, if they have an extra income, if they need to relocate, if they need, there is a plenty of things that we don't. We only saw the surface. You are touching the surface. You lost your job, but you don't know what's next for everyone, and that's the main issue. Like again, I back to, because for me the most important aspect of whatever we are doing or whatever we are working or building teams or making projects or working in something is the people, and it's hard. It's hard to measure the impact in the long run for the people that are gone, but for the people that stays as well.
100%.
Because it is the other thing, you know.
Yeah, no, I've spoke to a couple of guys who are still there. You know, won't name them by name, obviously, but like, yeah, I've had conversations where they feel just as guilty, because I also know two people on my feed that I talk to who have just accepted positions at Blizzard who are now just about to start. So they're feeling weird about even announcing that they have a job there because of what's happened. So
yeah,
it's pretty horrible. But anyway, yeah, again, the love goes out to the Blizzard family and the guys at Riot, also in Activision, and anybody who's kind of been affected by this. And definitely our thoughts are with you. And yeah, if you know me personally and you need any help, definitely reach out. But yeah, so moving on again, you've worked on these major titles and you've worked on Diablo and stuff like that, and it's been a great experience and a fantastic project. But of course, with most of these interviews, we have to go back because that's not where you started. Wasn't your first job. It's not where you began. It probably took a while to get to where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, even seeing on your resume that CD Projekt Red was one of your companies that you worked for a long time as well.
Yeah.
So where did the UI kind of thing start, in the sense that, you know, I think personally when I've interviewed people over the last 6 years, concept art is something people go to continuously because it seems like the cool job.
Yeah.
So where was the UI for you? Like, how did you find yourself doing that?
This is a tricky question, really tricky.
Yeah.
I was living in Colombia. I got married with a Polish girl, and we moved together to live in Poland.
Right.
When I moved from Colombia to Poland, I had over back of me experience of 14 years working in advertising, logo design, corporate branding, plenty of things.
Yeah.
And on my free time, I was investing time in creating fonts and making illustrations and sketchbooks and art and things like that. But I never was close to video games and the video game industry.
Right.
So, and it was completely far from me.
Yeah.
The only interest that I had in video game industries is like, you know, you see the trailers, you see the concept artists, the art of comic books, if they have products and merchandising and so on.
Yep.
So purely the graphic design on video games. When I was living in Poland, I struggled a lot to get a job. I crossed through a difficult situation where I was not having no friends, no work, no possibilities in front of me, and I
You
was
wouldn't,
doing.
you wouldn't have spoke Polish either. I was going to say that would
No,
have been
I
a
didn't.
language barrier. Yeah.
No, no, no. So my wife only she's. I mean, this her language. Anyway, so I was struggling a lot to have a job, to find an income, and I saw one day that CD Projekt were looking for a graphic designer.
Mhm.
So I sent my portfolio as a graphic designer, and I told them, yeah, I can make fonts, I can open your fonts, I can do stuff. If you need whatever you need, I'm available. When I sent my CV over there, uh, an art director and an art manager, they saw my portfolio. They invite me to have an interview with them.
Mhm.
From the very beginning, was clear between us in the conversation that I didn't have any experience in video games, and I never designed interfaces. My
Right.
only approach in with the designing for the screens was designing for websites.
Okay.
So you know proportions, colors, fonts, I have a little bit of information on the media,
Mhm.
and I did long ago some flash animations and things like that.
God, Flash. Yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, yeah. So you have interactivity
Yes.
in those uh, things that I was designing for.
It's more kind of now commonly known as motion design as well. That
Yeah,
works within fonts. Yeah.
for different clients. Anyway, they saw my portfolio. They like my conversations. We like to each other,
Mhm.
and then they gave me a test for designing something for them. I
Okay.
did the test. They give me the chance to start with them.
Fantastic.
When they hired me, it was 3 months before the E3 when they announced publicly the game, and I was working with for the UI for that presentation of in the E3.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I worked over that time, and then after the E3, they announced publicly the game, and I stayed in the game through the whole production of The Witcher 3.
Okay. Cool.
So I didn't have experience. I didn't knew what I was doing. I didn't knew anything about the video game industry. I didn't knew there was lacking in plenty of things.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult job.
Yeah. Can
Difficult
imagine.
job in many sense because on the in one hand was me learning in the field,
Yep.
and on the other hand, at the very beginning of the production process, we have on the team only one UI designer and one UI artist. That was me.
Right.
So I was doing things that a mid or a senior guy is doing, but I was doing everything by myself.
Of course.
With time, I discovered that I did a we did a bad contract.
Mhm.
I took bad decisions,
Mhm.
but everything was motivated because at that time I didn't have money. I
Of
didn't have
course.
an income. I didn't have projects on my pocket.
Yeah.
So I did the best that I can in this project.
Mhm.
And I guess that internally, for many people, including me, we didn't knew how big
The Witcher would be.
exactly the impact of the Witcher in the industry
Yep.
was so
Massive.
immense
Huge. Yeah.
that it helps me to position my portfolio
Yep.
in the industry for another kind of projects.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think because also it kind of at the time, set the bar then for fantasy games in the AAA space. I think Witcher really ticked all of the boxes of what it should be. How good the dialogue system should be, combat, magic, user interface, art, all that kind of stuff. It was very high level. I know when I started to go to industry events in 2016, I went to my first ever industry event, which is industry workshops in London.
Mhm.
I met guys like Marek Madje, Marcin
Yeah.
Kriski, who are
Mhm.
all now guests of mine and were the first set
Yeah.
of guests I interviewed. And they were doing presentations then on Witcher 3 stuff that they had worked on, monster designs, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think that there was a whole slew of people who came out of that project who then moved on to other things because it was such a huge success. And then I'm assuming were you there for Cyberpunk or any part of that?
Yeah. So we launched The Witcher, and then partly Cyberpunk, partly Witcher.
Okay.
So we were earlier prototypes for Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in The Witcher. I was not the only this. I mean, at the very beginning of the project, I was the only UI artist doing work and
Of course. Yep.
skinning and giving designs. But then CD Projekt that hired more people because the project was growing and
Yep.
we need more hands and more support and so on. But for no one is a secret that there was a plenty of crunch. There was a plenty of for me personally, it was difficult inside of the company, but difficult in my private life.
Yes.
My life in living in Poland was really, really difficult for me for many personal reasons. I have a list of
things that went on at the time.
situation that was completely wrong for me, and I didn't felt fine living in Poland. So we launched the game. Then I moved to Cyberpunk, but at some point I didn't want to. I felt after 6 years living in Poland, I felt like it's enough. I'm just
you don't want to do it anymore. Yeah,
this project is successful, this company is successful, and so on. But my life is not going anywhere. I was frustrated. I was burned out, and I was not feeling well with myself. No.
Especially after Witcher, like I have spoke to other people who have again. I talked about the first set of friends I made were in Blizzard. That was internationally, but kind of locally because I'm in Scotland, I'm in the UK, and going to these events. A lot of my early friends were people from CD Projekt Red, and it's very of public opinion now. People know that both Witcher and Cyberpunk suffered at the hands of management, and things being decided that shouldn't have been decided, and people having been worked to death essentially, and these really kind of not ideal conditions for studios. Again, I think that comes from because CD Projekt grew so rapidly from what it was from Witcher 2, and then people were getting jobs that had worked on games previously as just either artists or producers, and then we're getting management roles and moving up. So there was definitely a thing where we also knew early on that conditions weren't ideal and things were getting done that shouldn't be done. But yeah, I can understand that would have definitely, especially you being, like you said, the only person there on the UI team, one of two, for a project as big as Witcher, between map icons and maps and spells and bottles and doing all that yourself must have been awesome.
The last part of the project where we were crunching and so on, of course the team grows and many hands were helping, and we have more UI designers and more UI artists, and people were doing things, but during long part of the process I was doing things by myself, learning. It was really challenging project.
Yeah, can imagine.
Trying to survive the country, and I felt
you needed a change.
Yeah, it was nice. I'm really thankful with CD Projekt because they were the only company that gave me a chance.
Of course.
Before them, I sent more than 300 CVs. No one answered me. Nothing. Never. There was never an answer or we like your work, but we don't have opportunities now. No, it's just like Poland for me was a close environment, and was difficult to enter.
Yeah, CD Projekt I think are definitely the black sheep of the family in the sense that like video games weren't taken very seriously in that country for a long time, and I think even when they started, because of how even their origins, Marcin and the guys started that company by selling bootleg video games in markets, so like its origins are based in that. So like Poland I think in that sense hadn't really modernized to what the games industry was. So, so you moved, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and my thinking is again, it's not only CD Projekt; it's just the people that work in this project.
Yeah,
and in reality, we don't have this kind of people will appreciate us because we work it. I mean, if it's not because of the Witcher, people don't give me opportunities.
Yes,
but I feel at some point I was feeling bad, like people say to me, oh, so cool that you work in the Witcher.
Yeah.
What does it mean? I mean, I work in a nice project. I have the opportunity to do things, but my private life was a chaos.
Yeah.
Was a black canvas, and it doesn't matter if you. It helps me a lot to think. If sometimes you can work for big companies, but your private life is not as fun as you think.
I think people forget that most of these jobs are exactly that, jobs. You're working however many hours, even at any point, if you're working on something as cool as a video game, it's still, if you're doing 12-hour days and stuff like that, you will eventually get burnt out just because doing anything for that length of time will make you sick or make you, and again, if you're working those hours, you're neglecting your private life. So you're not eating healthy, you're not eating regular meals, you're not getting exercise, you're not seeing your partner. This is something I think, obviously, in the wake of the layoffs, that people are starting out to realize. And I think why people are talking on the side of like having game unions, because, even growing up in Europe as well, we've understood the power of unions because, like, especially in the UK, things like workers' rights, we have working time directives, so people can't work more than 40 hours a week. We have sick leave, maternity leave, things that we take for granted in games companies now, and especially in America where people don't really have a lot of workers' rights, can be laid off, within a day and stuff. So, like, mental health is something people are now actively more talking freely about, that we need to make a priority for people, their families and their time and away from work. So
I think that you can have passion. You can give to the company something. You can show your passion with the quality of your work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I don't know, this industry, if you listen in podcasts or read comments or whatever, and the people is thinking like, oh, my dream job, my passion, my things,
Yes.
but people forgot. How about your time with your family? How about your time, even if you don't have family? How about your time for yourself? How about creating your own projects?
Yes.
How about having time to read?
Yes.
How about having time to go to see a movie? How about just having a weekend where you don't need to think in nothing? And this is something that usually we don't think. We only think about succeed, how to be famous, how to work for the best companies, how to, and we are forgetting again the humans.
Yes.
These companies, Blizzard, CD Projekt, they are successful because of the people that work in these companies.
Yes,
It's
100%.
not only the name of the company. Yeah, and we forget a lot about this because no one talks about it too.
Yeah, and the phenomenon that people don't even realize, which I've discovered by talking amongst people for years, is because layoffs have been happening probably since I got in the industry. If it's not been, even I wrote an article back in 2019 about Blizzard layoffs then. So even the first time in the last couple of years, Blizzard have laid people off. But the problem you also have is when a lot of the senior management or senior team get laid off, like 10 to 20% of them will do is eventually just leave the industry completely. They'll never come back to the job. They'll leave and go work a normal job because they're sick of being, laid off or moved about. Because sometimes people relocate their entire lives to other countries to go work for these companies, and then laid off, they have to go back to normal. But yeah, when those people get laid off and then they leave the industry altogether, then you lose decades of people experience leading teams and project managing and art directing stuff that you'll never get. Because again, the problem I feel also the industry has at the moment is where there's so much senior team and senior positions where leadership's been a huge thing in art direction and people leading huge teams. There's been a real shortage, especially in the UK, of people hiring junior talent and bringing people in at a level. Your example for CG Project Red, where you were given an opportunity, even though you had very little game experience, the team were new enough that they were like, "We'll take a chance on you. We'll give you a test. We'll see what you do." That's a very rare thing in the industry now, for people to have that level of like, well, we know you don't have a lot of experience, but passionate, so we'll give you a chance. And yeah, that's a very big problem. A lot of people, seniors and art directors I know, are complaining about, because now that people have left, if that senior team disappears, there's no one at the back of them to come at the front. So yeah, it's a very big subject.
Yeah, but the other thing is, if they will hire you as a junior, treat you as a junior. Don't expect that you were a senior or whatever, because
100%.
it was kind of my feeling. I don't, I don't know. It's just
yeah. No, I mean,
it's the expectation of your job and how much you are paying for your time, for your creativity, and for your worries and your whatever you are giving us. We need to give you something back.
Yes.
And yeah,
I mean, you're very accurate in what you're saying. A lot of people I know who have taken on junior positions, and I wouldn't say they are not what I would have considered junior even a couple of years ago. A lot of the people I was seeing who were getting junior roles were like mids, were like, almost maybe even seniors, because their technical ability in their job was very, very high before they even got an interview. And again, it's people say, well, we're raising the bar, and it's difficult because so previously I was an engineer. I worked for the British Railway, and I was a data systems engineer for many years. When I was an apprentice at 18 years old, we were taking on the job, and I was fresh out of high school. I had no experience, even working full time. But then, because of my attitude at the interview, the guy who took me on was saying, yeah, of course, we'll take you on, we'll train you. So it was 3 years worth of training. And then after I finished training, I went into a job. But then, I think there's a lack of that in a sense where companies don't want to take on the risk to help juniors into that position because it's money, it's time, it's training, and then what do they get back from it? How do they benefit? But what they usually get back from it, and what I felt when I worked as an engineer, was loyalty, because the company at the time, Thales Telecom, they gave me an opportunity to have a job and a life and a career and money. So I stayed with them for 10 years. Even though the job was hard, I was still remembered the fact that they gave me an opportunity to work in that company. So I think with these smaller companies and even with the bigger AAAs, if they were taking on fresh talent like that and operating in a system of internships or apprenticeships, you probably would have people who remembered the company that took them on and have a loyalty to, you can even build it in a contract now. I know people who take people on and they can say, right, well, we'll take you on and train you and we'll give you this opportunity, but you have to work for us for 5 years minimum. And then if you don't, we'll recoup costs, we'll take money out of your salary to get the training money back. It's perfectly fine. So, I think it's a problem that is very, very valid in the industry, but no one's really addressing it at the moment, and that's difficult as well.
No.
Yeah.
I guess that, and it depends. For example, I learning that, I've been already in different companies and different projects, from AAA to mobile games so there is always a chance of learning, and there is no specific rule how to work. I mean, you have the basic skeleton of what is usability, what is UX, and what is graphic design, what is composition, what is color decisions, what is tension, grouping, blah blah blah. Gestalt. You can speak about graphic design in many levels, but no one is telling you how to work as a team. What we can do with what we can go for a AAA game that only have 2 people. What to do in a AAA game. Now I am in Diablo, where we have a big team of people, more UI artists, more hands-on, and they have, from my point of view, they have more experience building games and teams for games than years ago CD Projekt.
Right.
So, and it shows in the way how you approach things and what is in more how to say that. It depends in the dynamics of the people that are working together and the specific needs of the gameplay. So, and it's a learning always, but you need to be always like, my approach always in everything that I'm working is that I am learning something new. If my client is a different client, I need to learn something new. I need to learn your needs. I need to learn your target market. I need to learn your projects, what do you like, what do you know. Because when you work for Blizzard, you work for Blizzard is not only the company but the image of Blizzard.
Right.
So if you work for Diablo, you cannot do whatever you want. You need to work. You need to fit in the language of Blizzard, with the quality of Blizzard, with the mentality of Blizzard. But then you need to think in the people that you are creating these projects for the people, for the usability of the people.
Yep. And again, I think obviously with Diablo 4, that was an interesting project, but for Blizzard specifically, because it didn't really adhere to a lot of what they'd done in the past, stylization-wise, with stuff like Warcraft and Overwatch, and other things like StarCraft and Heroes of the Storm. That stylization was always a thing that kind of defined Blizzard. That's how their games looked. But Diablo 4, of course, I think I did read this somewhere where the art director talked about it was inspired by a Japanese horror artist, I think, or there was some inspiration there. It was some version of the artwork was inspired by Japanese horror graphic design stuff. But
because it's more John Mueller, that is the art director, he's more, or his talks was like, we can create something that is more like the old master painters, something, the color, the light, the old paint,
almost kind of Frank Frazetta kind of style as well.
Something as well like him, because this is the fantastic art of hand painted
right
things,
okay.
He want to achieve handmade things, look more organic, look more natural,
Right.
fantastic. He doesn't want to get high fantasy.
Right.
He want to be something more
In between.
in between. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still really, really like realistic, but some kind of a style, of course. Yeah.
Stylized realism, I think, is the kind of term people have coined now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I was happy. I was happy when I joined to the team and I saw the project because I saw opportunities how we can do things in different way than before.
Right. So again, you've moved from Poland, and then I take it at one point you would have left CD Projekt. Did you leave and then look to join Blizzard, or did they contact you while you were?
I get an opportunity to join in one company in Hamburg. As
Right.
I mentioned before, they were building a triple
Right.
A
One that
studio.
cancelled and kind of dropped, and right.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they make me a nice offer.
Right.
I was completely happy. I moved to Hamburg, beautiful city. The
Okay.
team was amazing. The project was amazing. Everything was full. Everything was okay. It was like Poland for me was a dark winter, and
Right.
living in Hamburg and in this project and whatever we were doing, it was like a spring for me. It was like
Yeah.
beautiful things, and it was interesting because my art director. In The Witcher, I was mainly doing UI, and time to time I make small projects on the side.
Yeah.
But in Hamburg, I was doing more things. I was not only making UI, but I was trying to prototype things for them,
Mhm.
pitching ideas for how to present the project, logo, communication, and so on. So the art director gave me freedom to do stuff.
Good.
And I
Cool.
was super happy because I work only 8 hours. I back home. I enjoy the city. I enjoy time with my wife, and everything was really cool.
Cool.
The people around me,
Yep.
I felt accepted. Multicultural city,
Hamburg's a beautiful city. I know it well. It's a very, very lovely city to live in. Yeah.
and I was well paid. So it was completely different situation.
Almost, Fernando.
Yeah, and I thought like I'm done. Like I was in a healthy mentality, healthy economy. I was already
Balance in
thinking.
your life. Balance was something you'd achieve.
Yeah, I was thinking like, man, all this 6 years sacrifice
Mm.
now are
It's paid
blooming.
off. Yep.
But at some point, the project was canceled, the studio was shut down,
Right.
and then the company want me. Good Games is the name of the company.
Mhm.
They want me to stay,
Right.
and they offer me the same. We will not change your contract. We will not pay you less. We will maintain everything, but you will be working on mobile games.
Right. Okay.
And I say, okay, no problem. Because I was at that point after honestly, Poland was so difficult for me.
I can feel it. I can feel it at the moment, Fernando.
and then I was thinking like the only thing that I want to do is just having time to enjoy my life.
Your life. Yep.
I just want to chill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any big projects, big
Yep.
meetings, big complications, and
Yeah.
So I was happy there, but the company is still having some issues.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end they canceled 3 projects that I worked in mobile,
Okay.
and then layoffs as well.
Right.
And I was impacted by that.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, when I lost my job, I was doing interviews with other companies here in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning, everyone like, yeah, The Witcher, you work in The Witcher, so we want to talk to you and so on. But long conversations, long interviews, and never happened nothing.
Okay.
It's like no, because I don't know. It's not the
Recruitment's
correct
difficult.
time,
Yeah.
or probably you are asking. We don't have the budget, or whatever
Right.
was the situation. Never happened something.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I was talking to people can fly in Poland.
Okay. Right.
They invite me to have some interviews to see jobs. And on the other hand, John Mueller contacted me from Blizzard,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea for him was contacted me directly to see if I really want to be working with them
Right.
for Blizzard. So it was not like I was looking for a job with them, or
Right.
I didn't send any CV. He saw my portfolio, and
Okay.
he contacted me right away.
Mm-hmm.
And But for me, it was difficult
Right.
because I'm from Colombia, and I was living in Germany and in Europe, and acquiring, having permit to work and live in Germany is a big thing for me.
Right, of course.
It means a lot. And I was thinking, like, if I am going to the States, I
Right.
will lost all the years that I have, all the paperwork that I'm doing, all the
Right.
things that Europe offer you
Right.
for living in the States.
Of course.
John Muir, Blizzard sent me one official invitation for me and my wife to visit the States
Right.
and visit the studio and talk to people and see the project. And,
Okay.
at that time it was not public that they were doing
Making it. Right.
Diablo.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went there and I met a lot of people. We have conversations. Everything was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I back to Germany
Mm-hmm.
and talking to my wife, we decided, okay, it's time to move on and we will change country. But at that time, my wife was finishing studies at the university in Hamburg,
Okay.
in Warsaw, in Poland.
All right. Okay.
And I was living in Hamburg.
Right.
So I worked over 6 months for Blizzard from Hamburg.
Okay.
And I start prototyping things for the UI, doing stuff, having meetings with them. And probably they understand a little bit how I work, how I approach things, and how I am communicating things. And then after those 6 months, we move together to California.
Right.
And since then, I'm already close to 7 years working for them. And at the very half of the project, I was probably again the only UI artist doing stuff for them. And then, of course, the need of the project is still growing on, and we have more hands and more people working as well.
Right. So you're not in California right now, though, are you?
No, I'm in Leipzig in Germany.
Right. Okay.
So I moved to California.
Yep.
We with my wife, we get pregnant for our first son was born over there, but
Yep.
we didn't we didn't like the Californian lifestyle.
Yeah, I think also America and stuff like healthcare, childcare costs. Yeah.
Plenty of things, I don't know. I come from Colombia.
Right.
And when I moved here in Europe, you have the seasons.
Yeah.
When you walk through the streets, you walk through the history.
Yes.
You have public transport.
Yeah.
Children at 8 a.m. are going. Probably they are 7 years old, 9 years old, go walking alone to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something we take for granted in Europe is the no guns thing as well. That's very apparent.
Part of that, yeah. Part of that. There is a plenty of things that you have here. If you are going to a coffee shop in Europe, it smells like coffee.
Yeah.
If you are going to one coffee shop in the States, it smells like sugar or syrup.
Yes.
But it's hard to make people understand these kind of things in the States. When you talk to Americans, they don't understand in some level.
I think sometimes the way I describe it is Europe seems more authentic than
I don't know.
Yeah, it depends, obviously, in your view of the world, but I think I know what you mean. There's
the States have this authenticity. They do things in their own way, and some things I like from there is that everything is. If you need help with the internet on Sunday, you have someone helping you.
Yes.
In Germany, for example, where I live, Sundays everything is closed. You cannot do anything. You cannot shop anything. You can, or if you need some, I don't know, something happened with you need some support in whatever something happening at your home. If it's in Friday after midday, no one will come to your home to help you.
Yes.
So anyway, whatever is the situation, is like, for me, Europe is more. It shock harder my soul.
Okay.
You have museums, you have galleries, you have coffee shop, you have people walking around, you have the public transport,
There's a culture kind of thing.
Yeah, you go to the park and it's full of people, and you feel part of the city. You don't need to be friend of everyone, but you feel that the city is alive.
Yes.
Where I was living in Irvine, California, You don't have public transport. You need to have a car.
Right. Yeah.
It was strange to see kids in the streets. Most of the people live in a car, go to home, car,
Go to
work,
shop. Yeah.
car.
Work.
This is
Yeah.
this kind of life. And
Yes.
then I have this. When we were pregnant, we were thinking like, how we will see the future. We want our kid be born close to nature and social life and the good things that offer Europe, or
And
we
your wife's
want,
family are kind of close by in Poland as well, and yeah.
So yeah, it was a easy decision, but it was a long negotiation with Blizzard
Yes.
to have the chance, because at that time it was pre-pandemic, so
Yeah.
Blizzard didn't have any employee
Working from home stuff.
working from abroad.
Yeah.
So basically, I became the first.
To kind of do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a nice opportunity, and I'm really thanked with Blizzard, because
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, they moved me from Germany to the States, and then this guy doesn't like this life, so we can
Move you
move.
back.
But it's hard to talk about these things, because now everyone to work abroad,
Yeah.
or everyone want to work from home, and people start to asking why him and we not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a strange situation in strange conditions, and the necessity of things, and probably they value a lot whatever I'm doing for them.
Yep.
I still working with them. This is the other thing of these jobs. I'm lucky enough to work for Blizzard, but you need to show off. The work that you need to create all the time is high quality all the time, no matter what. It's always high quality. And
It's difficult career to sustain for a long time. It's probably why also we don't have a lot of people in the industry who are over like 55 or 50. Like it's, I think with games, it's difficult to maintain that level of work ethic for a very, very long time without like burning out. Like, I mean, The Witcher was one thing, but I think even like if you still even are working 8-hour days, even in places like Blizzard, it still is, like you say, a high quality work. It's a high, people at the top of their game environment. There's very talented people that you work with.
Yeah.
Loads of people are very, very good at what they do.
Yeah.
So it's, that also can be long-term burnout, because like, you start to get to a point where, for 10 plus years, if you're doing it, you will start to feel it.
Yeah. But I guess that I have I use a lot of time creating my own projects,
Yes.
experimental work, and I'm doing where I allow myself to fail, to do horrible things, to put people
Right.
that no one cares, or I don't need to please anyone. Mainly during my career, when you have clients, you need to please your art director or whatever is taking decisions. For my health, creativity,
Yep.
just to have safe environments, I'm creating always something on the side. I'm just sketching in my notebooks, or
Very important.
doing stuff where I can fail, where I can do horrible things and not feel that I need to be like it. Because this
Yes.
is the other thing that I am is a problem for me, or not for me because I am already old. It's simply the new generations.
Yes.
They have this appetite for being liked.
The best. Yeah.
They suffer if they don't have more than, I don't know, hundred of likes in their Instagrams or whatever,
social media,
or if they are not accepted. And for me, it's a little bit more like I just like to do things. It doesn't matter if people like me or not. I'm not doing nothing for. I mean, my work, my client work and Blizzard work, of course, is to show and to make people appreciate, and to people enjoy, and people you know it is a relation work between me and people.
Yep.
But I have a lot of plenty of room for doing things that I know that no one cares about what I'm doing in my private life, and I don't care if people like my work or not.
Yeah.
And I guess that many people in the industry are forgetting about
Yes.
this room for themselves.
I mean, as somebody who's a bit younger, I mean, I'm so obviously I worked in engineering until I was 30, then went back and retrained. So I'm 30 currently. In August, I'll be 39. And next year, I will be 40. So, it's one of these things where age creeps up on you really quickly and you start to reassess what's important in life. I think especially during COVID, people really got a sense of that because people were getting sick, people were dying, and workers were treated less than, people were expected to come to work even during the pandemic, which was crazy. I was in a very lucky position where I was working remotely. I was working for a studio in LA and, I could work from a computer. I didn't have to leave the house. So very, very, very fortunate. But yeah, I did look into the things of something people kind of maybe either know or don't know, maybe, but I developed a condition in my left eye where it was extremely dry, so I have to take drops now every day. But that developed from, especially during the pandemic, I would sit for maybe sometimes 10 hours a day in front of a monitor because you were stuck at home, you couldn't do anything. So I didn't have any kids, I didn't have, so the computer was my life. I was still trying to get in the industry, so I was making art. And now obviously looking back, the things that I went through in my health and situations, it's like, yeah, like I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't, and and again, personal information about me, but I'm also dealing with the moment I might have ADHD, so I'm getting tested for that as well. So it's a whole thing of like, if you're not properly situated mentally and physically in the industry, you will struggle because the industry itself, again, through hustle culture, through capitalism, it demands so much of you. It demands so much of your time, of your energy, of your passion, of the things to create things all the time. As a person, as a partner, because I have a partner as well, and she's, I'm lucky in the fact that, she's a teacher, so she has a really stable job that pays quite well, government job. But, I always feel like I have to be doing my best because I want to also contribute. I want to be able to pay bills and help her with stuff. And like, yeah, like I've been laid off as well. And I know what that's like as well. Then panicking about how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay this? So yeah, the world we've created through social media, through instant clicks and gratification, and it's not really their fault because we aren't the architects behind stuff like that. Stuff like Facebook and Instagram, we didn't invent that. People in Silicon Valley are responsible for that. So, but it has created a generation now where people, have an instant response to their phone, have to pick it up and check it. And with art as well, it's like, we've lost the ability to do things for ourselves and not be judged on, like, the worst thing for me right now, I'm sorry I'm ranting here a wee bit, but just giving you a bit of context, but
it's okay.
Like the thing I've struggled with the most, again, I think it's because just how my brain works, but deciding on doing one thing has been difficult for me. Whereas eventually I've learned is that you don't have to be defined by your work. You can do multiple things and still be an artist in one respect. A friend of mine who draws these, incredible comic books and makes, illustrations and pictures of Zelda and then Link and all that kind of stuff. But he's a 3D artist for Blur Studios. So his day job is kind of doing that stuff for super realistic stuff. But then at night, he sits with a sketchbook and a pen and draws and makes his stuff for himself. And it's always for him, not for other people. And I think that's, like you said, one thing we've forgot is like, your job isn't your whole being. You're not your career, which is something people don't learn early on.
I explain to many people when I have conversation, it's like I see my life like a cake, and every slice of this cake is something.
Right.
My job, my relation with my wife, my relation with my son, my relation with my private life, my relation with my hobbies and passions. And if most of them are okay, I'm feeling okay.
Yes.
But when most of them are in trouble or are not well positioned or whatever happened, my life is affected. So I think that since many years, I don't know, years before, when you worked for in industry, the video game industry or the cinema industry or whatever, and you appear in credits, no one cares, and you don't need to show off yourself.
Yeah.
In modern times, you need to show that I work in this big title, this big company, I do this, there is hunger for always doing something that will show off.
I think it's
not something that fulfilled you.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is the nature of wanting to be relevant constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like the problem with our industry also is the fact that you're only as good as your last project. What did you work on recently? What did you do? Oh, you worked on this indie.
Yeah.
Oh, you worked on Star Wars. Oh my God, incredible. And and the thing is though, like when I interviewed Ian McCaig, who is the godfather of concept art, the guy who's worked on everything and all this, like, incredible guy. But he could care fucking less about working on Star Wars. He loved the project. He loved working with George. It was an incredible experience in his life. But that's not what defines him as a person. Like, he spends so much more time now writing and making his own stories and outside of work, really living and loving life and meeting people and giving back to students and teaching. And, people will say like, oh, you worked on Star Wars. And Ian's always like, yeah, it was great. It was a fantastic project. And I really loved it. George was great to work with. And then he just stops talking about it and goes into something else and starts talking about the passion of drawing and how pencils can be aligned. And, whereas someone who worked on Star Wars might forever and a day be like, oh, I worked on Star Wars, by the way. I tell you, I worked on Star Wars. But it's like, and it's the same with you. You can say to people like, Witcher's one thing, but then you can be like, oh, I worked on Diablo 4. And people are like, oh, Diablo 4. The problem also, as well as the public perspective as well for artists, because you might say I worked on Diablo 4 and then somebody would say to you, yeah, the game is shit.
It's true.
Yeah, it's like, you can't win. Yeah,
it happened. We have reviews at the very beginning when we launched Witcher. There was bad reviews about things crashing, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and then you take it by heart, like how you saw. Because anyway, we are putting a lot of emotions and time, and we want to succeed. Every one of
years
us,
of your life.
We want to succeed, no matter if you have a small project, indie project, or you are creating, giving time to succeed, and you suffer when your project is not well received.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's harder for me to say things because, on the other hand, I work something and I post. I'm posting in all my channels.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not looking for approbation, but I get used to show my work because years ago, when I was living in Poland, no one wanted to listen to me. No one wanted to give me a chance.
Yeah.
And I grew up with this fear of I will not be relevant in some way, but not because of how to.
As even like you wouldn't be remembered, like kind of years from now.
It's not about remembering, but I'm afraid. Part of me is afraid of losing the job, and that someone will discover that I'm not so good as.
So what you're talking about is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm afraid of. Even working with Diablo and these things, sometimes the first months working in Diablo was man, what I'm doing here.
I know.
Look at these people.
Imposter syndrome is something that is very common amongst artists. Loish done a video about it recently, how it affects young people now, and the fact that you would get hired somewhere and it's like, oh, they're going to suss out that I'm crap, that I don't know what I'm doing, they're going to fire me. And it is a thing of not feeling worthy of what you have, which comes from like loads of things, but usually a lot of external validation of, people will tell you externally, like, oh, you've, like you said, because you've not worked on something massive, you've not worked in Blizzard, you've not worked with Witcher, why would you be relevant and stuff? And then when you get the opportunity, you're like, oh my God, I'm not ready. Like, I don't feel like it. But, you run to catch up with people. Like, you say to yourself, like, from me looking from an outside perspective, your work is incredible. I think it's fantastic. Like all the things I'm looking at in your Behance, all the typefaces and the things you made for Diablo, for the style, for the glyphs. Fantastic. It's incredible. It's like an absolute work of art. It's something that you've created that nobody else has ever done. But then like you internally will look at things and then compare it to maybe another game or another company and think, oh, but it's not as good as XYZ. It's not as good as... So yeah, imposter syndrome is something I think we all live with daily. It's a very common thing to have.
But it's strange too, because my feeling is I'm not comparing with others, because I really admire, I get used to go to galleries. So I see the monumental work of people, and I have this ability to appreciate the work of others.
Yep.
And I am not creating things. I'm not competing with someone else to see who is best.
Right. Yeah.
My work is more about related of I am doing what is correct for this project.
Yep.
Even if I don't like it, sometimes I do things that I don't agree with, but it's not about me. It's about what is okay for the project.
Yeah.
Because my mentality is always as a graphic designer. I am in service of the optimal communication of a project for the consumer.
Yes.
It's not about me. Yeah. It's not about if I like it or not. Of course, I need to have a aesthetic judgment about my work.
Yes.
But and as a professional, I try to do the best I can with the projects.
Yeah.
Even if I don't like the project, or even if I don't agree with the decisions that take my client, because even with Blizzard, I'm thinking all the time, they are my client.
Yes.
It's not only that I'm waiting for the end of the month to have my
paycheck,
check and done, No, I'm just thinking like what they need, how I can give something extra to them, and
Yep.
that's why I'm thinking in giving them. Oh, I will try to create some fonts and some symbols and some extra things, and many things that you see on my portfolio now,
Mhm.
or recently from Diablo is mainly me trying to give them something.
Yes.
I'm preparing my portfolio. I'm preparing the UI portfolio to show, but it's too much work, and I need to curate everything, and it will
Yeah,
take
yeah, yeah.
it will take some time to
Yeah.
before people can see
All of the
a
stuff you've worked
little
on.
bit a little bit of whatever we work,
Yep.
because this is the other thing. People only see what is in the surface, what is published in the game,
Yes.
but behind is plenty of work what will
Oh
never
yeah.
see the day of the life.
No, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drawings and
Yeah, yeah,
pictures,
yeah.
sketches, and yeah,
Different takes, different designs, different compositions, different textures, different, or
loads. Yeah, sketchbook's full of stuff. Probably. I mean, I remember I saw it kind of privately, but when I was at Blizzard, I saw one of the guys who worked on Overwatch's sketchbook, and like just stuff that just you would never see I'll never see the light of day, but like
yeah,
it was incredible just to flick through and see all the ideations and how things were put together and how they would work in real life and mechanics and break out things that you'd drawn for weapons and stuff. I was like, my God, like, I used to hang about early on when I first left the industry, because initially I got in with the crowd over here that drew comic books. So, and it was a lot of indie developers, a lot of indie guys who, are good craftsmen. They can draw, but it's maybe not to the level of like AAA games. And then I bumped into a director at Industry Workshops the first year, and he handed me a sketchbook, and I went through it in 3 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, just like the level of like his technical ability to draw. And he was an art director, so like he wasn't drawn in that level, contributing on that sense, but he still drew for himself. And like, yeah, his sketchbooks were just unbelievably filled with just these incredible drawings.
yeah,
But then interesting as well, just as we're kind of maybe even coming to a close here, but within the UI industry, like you talk about graphic design, and a
mhm,
lot of the guys who maybe work in graphic design for UI and UX and stuff like that, it's a lot of boxes, and graphic shapes and squares and
yeah,
circles.
yeah.
How important has it been along your journey to have penmanship, to be able to draw and sketch on top of the graphic stuff, like like the
Yeah.
ability to, be able to draw as much?
Blizzard.
Yeah,
Blizzard want handmade things and handmade design. So if you want to work for them, you need to have the graphic design side, but you need to have the ability to draw.
to sketch and draw. Yeah,
If you are working for Cyberpunk, probably
less
you
than
don't
yeah.
you don't need heavily drawing skills.
It's not as important. Yeah.
So depends in the project, depending on what you want to do. And in my case, I am always in service of my client. So,
Hmm.
for example, if my client, I don't know, if Blizzard decide to do modern game, minimalistic or whatever,
Right.
I need to make my skills work for them.
Yes.
So I am not, because it's hard at the very beginning when was the I we back to The Witcher, but at the very beginning was like everyone that want to work with me is because of we like The Witcher, so we want something similar to Witcher,
Right. Okay.
or the recruiters will ask me,
Mhm.
is your style medieval or so I need to explain to them,
Whatever the client, the project needs
yeah,
is
whatever. I'm a graphic designer, so my client could be a dentist,
right.
a pet shop, a zoo,
Yep.
or a military, whatever. And always I need to fit to the needs of my client.
Yep.
And for me, graphic design, my all my projects are purely graphic design. I'm seeing whatever I'm doing in UI
Hmm.
is as a graphic designer that is trying to understand the brief of my client, and I will create tailored things for him.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking in what is in fashion, what is the trend, or
Yeah.
I don't care about those things. I just need to understand what your project is about,
Yep.
and I will try to generate ideas for this project.
Stuff. Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm making in my website UI projects that are personal, that have a different kind of visual languages or different references or different uh, uh, visual solutions.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that's also a choking point with industry as well, where a lot of recruiters, a lot of art directors will be like, looking for people who already fit the niche of what they're doing.
Yeah.
They already like, oh, of course, your stuff looks exactly like Blizzard, so we can hire you straight away because we don't have to train you at all.
Yeah.
Like you said, versus people who like, because even when I was early on, getting interviews and stuff like that as well, because I've been through so many at this point, they would say, oh, I can see you're doing 3D stylized stuff, but how would you feel about doing realistic? And I'm like, well, look, I'm a 3D modeler. It just means more or less detail, more or less textures. I'm sure I could fit to whatever I'm sure I could, because it's stylized, and we're not quite sure if they're realistic, and and it's like such a headache because it's like, well, whatever you need, I would make. It's difficult in that sense, and it's the same with UI. Like people would say, oh, it depends on the project. And you're like, well, yeah, it does depend on the project. Like, why would you not be considered for Cyberpunk, and or coming back and do Cyberpunk 2, because you've done Diablo stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could do both. It's like, so yeah.
So and that's why I like to make experimental work, because I can show another kind of different range of creativity that I can create. And but it depends too. The employer need to ask you is like, do you have the abilities to do realistic or stylized art? And you will say yes or not. It's up to you. Your employer cannot decide what you are able to do.
100%. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like the fact that people might say, I can't do, realistic stuff at all. It's not what I do. And you're like, all right, fair enough, but I have said to people, like they said, oh, well, we need realistic stuff. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I can totally learn to do that. It just means I have to change the textures I put on it, or like add like maybe 3 times as much detail with bolts and stuff. But I could probably do it. Yeah, like it's well within my wheelhouse. So it's like, it's one of these things. Like even the other end of people who do realistic stuff, I bet you couldn't maybe do the stylized. I think the other way sometimes is more difficult when you go from realistic to stylized, because stylized, I think, is art in itself, learning how to make things look stylized also. That's a skill. But like, I think as long as people are passionate and hardworking, give them a chance.
You have ethics work, if you are a good person, if you because it is the other thing. It's not only skills. You need to be a good person and a good co-worker.
You have to really get on with people.
And something that I want to, for example, I have already a decision in UI, and I don't want to make iconography. I like to make specific kind of iconography, for example, for symbology or flat icons, or more like simple, but to make this iconography for fantasy RPGs, hundreds of icons and drawing everything, I will say sorry, but it's not my
your thing you want to do.
I'm done doing. I'm more on the side of, show me the big picture of the UI, what we need to do, how many screens, the visual language for the UI. I want to think in the big picture, not in the spend days and years
making the small
icons. Again, 64 per 64 pixels is like,
it's like years and years of doing that. It's like you say, you want to. I think as a creative as well, you crave a bit of change eventually. You do things for so long, and then you're like, oh, I want to give myself another challenge. I want to go work on like Overwatch, for instance. Like you might want to go try and join that team and try that, because that's more hyper stylized, realistic stuff, but it's more like future tech and cyberpunk kinda. And so it's like, you maybe look at those projects and think, oh, that'd be different, that'd be great, And I think that's good. What's good about Blizzard in the sense that when I've always spoke to the team members, because they have like famously they have team 5, team 4, they've all got their team numbers. They have a good thing of like, if people want to jump to other teams or they want to move across internally, they're very good at like doing that, saying like, I've spent years on Diablo, I'd really love to go try Overwatch 2, can I jump? And they'd be like, yeah, sure, let me talk to that director, we can try me. So and of course there's going to be a job there to fill, but like obviously they're very accommodating in that sense that they want people to try and change within the company and try different things. So it's one of these things. So even like with Samwise and guys like that who worked for years on Warcraft, but then done a lot of stuff for Overwatch as well, because he was I want to try it, something different. So you don't want to box creatives in pigeonholes and make sure they're only doing one thing forever, So Okay, so I mean, like, just kind of quickly to wrap up, we'll talk about that briefly for maybe 10 minutes, but again, you've had this long career, you've worked on all these different projects, fantastic, brilliant stuff, really, really great stuff. But if you were starting out again, if you had to give yourself some advice, starting from scratch or building a portfolio to work in UI, because I'm sure a lot of people, probably even the bulk of people, there's obviously professionals watch my podcast, but there's a lot of students who maybe, have never heard like people in UI, because again, I've heard, even researching it myself, there's very few people who talk about it openly, but what are the kind of key tenets for you as a designer? Like, what do you look for? And like, if you were hiring specifically, maybe even like a junior UI artist or people like that, is there something you feel like they should be paying attention to, or places they should be looking for information, or things they should be putting in a portfolio?
I guess I will think more in terms of that. What a modern or a contemporary UI junior UI artist could do. First is just the sense of graphic design. He need to have really good skills in graphic design, understand the basic of graphic design, use of typography, use of color, use of composition, plenty of things of graphic design. He need to be a good graphic designer. And if he has the ability to draw, it will be in benefit of him.
Yes.
The other thing is he need to create a portfolio. How to say that? There is plenty of UI artists that are doing the same and the same and the same and the same. They are copying to each other, but they are not creating unique work.
Right.
So what we want to see is people that have ability to be creative, to do new things, to share new things, but not for the sake of being, I don't know, to be crazy. You need to be, you need to create a cohesive portfolio that shows that you can do different kind of projects, different kind of takes in different environments. What I will do is show a lot of understanding of what is to build a really high quality UI. Yeah, because mainly many UI juniors, they only draw icons.
Right.
But we don't see the usability of the icon, how it looks in the UI, how in which kind of platform you want to show your UI. This UI is for mobile, is for AAA. It will should be shown in a TV, in a computer, or where you are displaying your UI. And
you'd always want to see like a full menu system, like if they could build a full kind of maybe title screen or something, like, or an option screen, or I have seen people who would maybe take another game and then redesign the UI.
But the main issue with that is that the UX solution is already done.
Right. Okay.
So you are only reskinning. You are not thinking UI.
Yes.
That's the main problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, you are just creating a different skin, but you are not thinking the UI.
Right. Okay.
And that's the main problem. So I want to see your abilities creating something new from scratch.
Right. Okay.
So what I will recommend is what I do. Try to think in one project. Try to think in a video game. Which kind of video game you want to play?
Okay.
Create the history, create the background of the game, and make one specific UI for that project.
Right.
It will be unique and it will make you visible.
Stand out.
Yeah, it will make you, because there is a plenty of people now there is a boom of UI creators.
Right. Okay.
But the main problem is that they don't have quality, or they looks always the same.
Right.
So they are not. There is no one that they stand out.
Right.
This is what the industry is looking. The one that is there alone,
the interesting one,
shining between the ocean of UI artists.
I think that's very common in any job, especially in the industry, is that for many years I would sit in ArtStation and try to copy what people had done, forgetting that your own individual voice is what's really more important. Yeah,
exactly. I need to show probably John Mueller, so that I was doing fonts and I was doing UI and I have my own projects, and then I do another thing, and he saw potential in me. Yeah, and this is what we want to see in people, because at the end of the day, even if you don't have the experience, but if you have the potential, we can teach you. Yeah.
Yes.
Blizzard is investing time in teaching people things. I myself, I learned things a lot at Blizzard, and sometimes I every new project is a new learning.
Yes.
And what they want to see is potential, that you have the potential, that we can use your skills for something new.
Yes.
And we don't need to create the same.
You're not going to remake Diablo again. If you're going to do something different, you're not going to remake the same game again. So you want to see that fresh breath of air.
Yeah. And for example, I'm happy with whatever is now the UI in Diablo. But if I want to make my take on Diablo, probably will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But people need to understand that I'm in service of my art director, I'm in service of a project, and I'm in service of Blizzard. So they want a project and a product that looks like that.
Yes.
Obviously, doing the best that I can in the best of my abilities.
Yes, you have limitations within your job because you're expected to do things that fit within the style of the game. But then, on your own time, you can do really whatever you want.
Yeah. So sometimes, for example, when I'm working with them, I will create whatever they ask me for, and then on the side, I will create something that what I think it could be cool. So sometimes we enter in conversations like, oh, we can do. For example, the font. Yeah, and the font that I create for them was from the very beginning that I entered to this project. I thought we need a new font. We need something that is communicating the universe,
the style,
the setup of the world of Diablo. It's
right?
set up in a medieval world where it's old and it's antique, and I was looking for something like old books printed in
Right.
the first kind of printed book that have some mistakes and misadjustments,
Like
and
almost hand-drawn books, handwritten books, stuff like
kind
that.
of, yeah. So I was trying to look for how to create a font that looks a little bit distressed
Yep.
and belongs to an old time and so on. So yeah, what I you need to have things in your head. They are looking for something.
Thinking outside the box, essentially. You want to do stuff that's different.
Yeah. Big because there is a plenty of UI artists. There is a plenty of concept artists that can make UI as well. But the difficulty is in finding people that have
Have a unique voice.
creativity, abilities, and that offer something.
Yes. Almost like the true artist, yeah. Just quickly as well, we talked
Mhm.
obviously the stuff you're talking about just with basic design with UI stuff. Like, how important on a junior level, like somebody coming into a job, because you talked about like obviously you can teach them certain aspects. Should they know enough about like stuff like motion design or working in an engine? Is that stuff that's also
Everything is
important?
beneficial. Every extra knowledge you have is beneficial
Right. Yeah.
when I'm saying to people, for example, don't another problem that happen is a lot of UI artists we have a lot of interviews, and one of the big problems is that people are centered in video game industry
Right.
and they don't see, I don't know, traditional art, or they are not interested in movies, or they are not interested in, you need to have your mind moving in creativity.
Yeah. Graphic design outside of games, basically.
Thinking everything you possible acquired,
Movie
movies,
posters, billboard
magazines,
signs, magazines, yeah, everything.
everything.
Album covers, yeah.
If you take pictures, better because you know about composition. You need to be well educated
Yes.
in visual.
Likewise.
You need to have levels of education in visual uh, environments. And yeah, usually people think that the video game industry you need to be specifically only playing games and
Yeah.
saying another games, and but you need to have
A
resources.
mix. Yeah.
So
Because then the way modern games will look different or catch people's eyes because you're not just thinking within video games, you're thinking from other parts of the world that then makes it more
yeah,
interesting. If you
yeah.
only look at games, then you're defined by that small circle. But if you expand, obviously, like, I mean, for graphic design for me, like, people might not talk about it often, but then again with games and stuff, but I fell in love with guys like Aaron James Draplin, so Draplin Design, so guys like that who thought outside the box again with the graphic design and how they approached it. Like the fact he used to go what he calls junking, so he would go to small garage sales in America and
Mhm.
find old logos and patches from like,
Yeah.
stickers from like 50, 60 years ago that worked then. And he's like, look at the simplicity of the shapes and look
Mhm.
how, like, stuff like that gets me excited as well. And I love that aspect of like old world stuff that like existed hundreds of years ago or 50 years that we can still use today and is still recognizable. You can use it on the side of a pin or the side of a bus, it works either way. So like for me, that's something I think that stands me apart because I look at people like that and how they find graphic design shapes. But like, yeah, if your narrow vision is just in games and you've only ever experienced graphic design within games and not print media or you will then limit yourself to your it's like a visual library. Like
exactly. That's what
like
you
all the
need to be in.
in your head. Yeah,
You need to
definitely.
be immersed in everything, and because again, your client or your probably your next video game, or I don't know, Blizzard is opening a new opportunity for another kind of game that is set up in a mixture of I don't know, a survival that is cyberpunkish, medieval,
Or something like that.
So
Or
you
even
need
Japan or
you need to have these visual references. What is medieval? What is
yeah,
what is
modern.
modern? What is
Even just graphic design or art styles, like stuff like Art Deco, things like that maybe are like not specific to things you learn, if you're not a fine painter or fine artist, but you would still have to have an understanding about what is Deco, what defines the shapes, why are they a certain way. I've done some graphic design training before I went and done 3D, so I had a lot of foundation in typography as well and stuff like that. So yeah, they were very much the same, and I think it's also the same across a lot of disciplines. Like I don't know how much it pertains to different designs within maybe even 3D design, but with a lot of 2D stuff, even the concept, it's like, yeah, if you're only looking at ArtStation, if you're only looking at like, Pablo Dominguez's like latest piece and that's all you're really looking at, you've only done his course, I mean, great, you might be able to emulate Pablo's style, but the reason Pablo has also done as well as he has is because he hasn't stuck to societal norms and he's thought outside the box as well, and mixed oil painting stuff with some 3D stuff with some ZBrush, like he's trying everything that's at his disposal. He's trying to use to make things, a digital collage of his identity on the paper. So yeah, I think I know what you mean. You've got to have that unique turn of voice in the industry that people will then seek out because you're doing something cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, that answers all my questions anyway. But also, yeah, I've also understand you probably have to get back to your day, your work, and obviously your family as well. So I don't want to keep you too long.
It's okay.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on and chatting. It's been really eye-opening, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for thinking on me. Because you have a list of really great people talking to you, and for me it's a honor. I mean, I'm always thinking with everyone that want to talk to me.
Yep.
Because again, I have the experience of not being listened. No, at some specific part of my life, no one want to listen me, and my voice was not important for anyone. And I am now at the point that even there is a plenty of students or young people that are sending me emails and they are sending me questions and so on, and I try to answer everything and I try to give space to everyone.
Yep.
Because I have the luxury of working for these companies and these things, and probably I can share something to them that is important for their careers.
Yeah.
And I want to,
You want to help as much people as you can, really, at this point.
Yeah, but again, my experience is just my experience. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that I know the rules and how. I don't know how to work. I mean, when I'm thinking what many times I question myself, like why I am working with Blizzard, why the art director contact me. It's like if I think in good way, in serious way, it's a little bit crazier. I never thought that I will be working for these big companies.
Yeah.
I even was not thinking, and I will be in the video game industry. It was like far from me. I didn't have education in video game industries, and I don't have
exactly.
any. And now I am in the point that of course, through the years I am more informed and educated and things, but initially I was not. Yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange. My career in usually my career is like that. It's like someone saw my portfolio and gave me the chance to do something that this person think that I can do, and I, even if I doubt about myself, I end up doing the thing, and they like it, and then something happened after. Usually when I try to apply to works or jobs or things by myself, usually it doesn't happen nothing. It's more about people that gave me are giving me the chances, and people need to have the ethics of if they give you the chance, try to do the best that you can.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things. I think you understand that, like, people always find about this thing about being extremely lucky, and I think the reason I've loved this podcast and I've talked about this often is the phrase of whenever you ask people how did you get into the industry, everybody's answer is different. There's no one defined path of I done this XYZ and I got into a job, and if you follow the same path, very much as being like just a general artist in the world, you forge your own path, you find your own voice, you find your own style, and then hopefully if it is good enough in a sense or brings enough attention, then people will give you opportunities to do your style, your voice, and put your mark on, like the UI. You are in service to Blizzard because of what you're doing for Diablo, but Diablo 4 also looks that way because you worked on it. Like it has your footprint, your fingerprint, your identity on the page of Diablo, and for years to come when people will play Diablo, and look at the font menus or look at the screens, it looks like that because you made it like that. So it's, it's one of these things where, if you have a unique enough voice, people will find it, in this industry, because it, like you says, it's something I think since the boom of video game art in the last 10 years, people have ran towards getting jobs, but like have not remembered that they need to have also a voice, a soul that they follow that helps them along the way, and try not to lose that, because that's one of the things that will help you be a better artist, is having that identity and that sense of self. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
So
that's really important. Yeah, and again, look, first things that we have in this conversation is the human side of everything.
yes,
for me, that's the core of everything, because
people
of
make
course
games.
we have AI soon taking our jobs, but for now we have
No.
for now we have the opportunity to create things, and
Yes.
we can do things, and we need to value people. We need to value people a lot.
I think, I speak to so many people now, even students who talk to me, and they obviously have the fear, but I think voices will always be needed in the industry. And I think even though AI can do certain things, I think you're always going to need a human touch to make things look and feel the way they need to be. I don't think we're in any danger.
Not now, but
not.
I don't know. We don't know the future. We are really bad to predict.
Yeah.
I like Noah Yuval Harari.
Yes.
So I'm more aligned to him, to his thoughts and ways of seeing things.
Yes.
And I do believe that at some point, it's just no. The point is not. It's just to be a little bit better than humans.
Yes.
If the computer or the system or whatever it is can do better, a little bit better than humans, we are done.
Yes.
And the only
I
problem,
think that's still a ways off as well. I think it's like people always think about that it's a very immediate threat, but I think some of the AI guys, the experts that I've listened to, have said, look, we still think it's like 20 years away. We don't think it's anytime soon. We don't think it's going to be an immediate threat. We think, yeah, sure, at one point it might be a thing where, it might learn to do things well enough to compete, but a lot of experts are saying that it's, it's a while off. It's a while off yet. It's not,
yeah.
There's more immediate threats, I think, in the world at the moment.
Yeah, sadly, sadly, we have these strange situations around us, and again, I guess that I will back to the problems of technology. I guess that the main problem is that we don't think what we are doing.
Yes.
We as a humans, we think that if we can do it, we will do it, but we don't think like, okay, what can happen if we create this technology?
Yes.
What happen if we take the job opportunities for people?
Yes.
No one is thinking on that that level, and there are no philosophers on the side of these technological companies thinking about what is the meaning of these things that we are doing, how we will benefit humanity creating these technologies.
It's the expression from Jurassic Park where the guy says your scientists thought about as much as they could, as much as they should. You could make the technology, but why should you? Why is it important for you to chase this? Why is it? And again, it's one of these things with Silicon Valley and production. And I think ruled by capitalism is the fact producers and people at the top in places like Hollywood want to make films every year with zero actors, with zero people to pay, for as much profit as humanly possible. It's no sustainable. It's one of these things. I think it will end up making the world kind of crash and burn because, in a hard reset, because we can't keep going at this rate. Like, we just can't. Nothing is. The planet itself is dying. At one point the planet's going to win. We need to really think about long term, because you have kids. I'm not in a position where I have a family, but you have young kids, and you've got to think about how is the world going to look in 50 years for them? How is the planet going to look? And you want to try and do your best to make it sustainable for everybody. And AI, I think, will help in sectors. I understand that has
potential.
potential.
It has
with
benefits.
Medical, with environmental. Yeah.
For medical research, for I don't know. There's plenty of things that it could uses.
It could help, yeah. But art is one
in
thing I'm like
favor of humanity, yeah. Again, but taking jobs from people for the sake of
yeah,
I mean,
for profit.
now in present time, because sorry that I'm talking
No,
too much.
No. Keep going if you want to keep going. Yeah.
In present time, we need to learn all the time something new. In this industry, we are learning new software, new uses of something. We need to be on top of everything. So we are always in the process of learning in order to perform the best of our abilities.
Yep.
In past, it wasn't like that.
Of course.
In past, you only need your knowledge and then your experience working in something.
Yes.
And in the future, our kids will be forced to learn faster and faster because the changes are becoming more rapidly in waves. Yeah. So my feeling is that they need to challenge themselves a lot to learn more things faster and quicker, and be open to the possibility that they will have less feelings of stability.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's why things that are dangerous, where people talk about, like Elon Musk when he talked about the Neuralink, and trying to merge your brain with a computer, essentially, so you wouldn't have to really learn things, you would just know things. And it's difficult. I think that's why, especially why juniors in the industry really struggle, is because, like 6 months ago, it was like Blender was the hot thing, and before that it was Maya, it was Max, it was Dreamweaver, it was, and then even with concept art, like, oh, well, are you photo bashing now? Are you using 3D? Are you, like, I only really properly, because I started going to events in 2016, learned about the industry. But the change since 2016, which is like, at this point, which is what, 7 years ago, something like that, the change I've seen in art in the games industry, and the change obviously in technology with more powerful consoles and bigger computers, it's like, for the gap we went from Nintendo to the 90s and the 2000s with PlayStation, but now this even smaller gap where like within art, it's like, because even my first art book that I collected when I really got into concept art was a Skyrim art book, and Skyrim was launched in 2011. And to see the difference between art books like the Skyrim art book and something like God of War, the new God of War game that came out, the difference in the ability to, and the attention to detail and their drawings and digital stuff that was now considered, it's such a, within the space of 10 years, the jump we've made is crazy. So it's like, like you said, in 20, 30, 40 years, what is that going to look like? How quickly are we going to have to keep running to chase to keep up with things? Because even UI, like if you want to work in UI, sure, you can do graphic design, but can you also draw? Can you work in Revit? Can you work in motion design? All this stuff that's expected of you, like as a junior, like walking into a company, that you need to know all this stuff. And sure, it's the reason why people struggle to get jobs and why so many people give up, because it's such a difficult life to maintain, of learning all the time. Because like you said, you don't have any time to sit on a bench and just look at the world and watch the grass go by and the wind sweep, meditate and think on your thoughts. And that's the problem as well with the way the world is. There's so much information that's constantly fighting to get in your brain. Nobody sits and just don't do anything. Just chill and let things flow through your head. Because even as an artist, that's when some of your best idea comes. When you make space, things rush into it. And it is a real difficulty, younger people, people who, again, my partner's a teacher, so she's teaching people who are 17, 18 years old and going into the world. And the reliance on technology and phones and watching TV and and almost none of them read really for fun or read books anymore. And I can sit with like an art book I've got in the background that like I'll sit and pull one of those out and just flick through the page and I'm reading I'm reading Rick Rubin's book just now and a couple of other things. But the ability to just sit and learn, and even learning art from books. I mean, I remember when we were studying graphic design and our teacher got sick of us Googling stuff and sitting on Pinterest, and he took us to the school library and made us, every one of us, pick a book and just take the book out and read it and look through the graphic designs in that, because books are obviously, they're super curated. The things in them, people have really put attention into making those things amazing. So like, if you really want inspiration, go pick up a book. Don't go on the internet and Google search or go on ArtStation. Pick up a really good book. Like the one I have over here, which is a really great one as well is so we talked about Aaron James Draplin. So he has a book which is I think almost everything or pretty much everything, and that's the cover is his entire career of graphic design. Which I love. He done one of his TED Talks. He talks about how one of his icons he got paid $40,000. One of his icons he got paid a burrito. So it's like, yeah, like he really is living proof of like living the dream of graphic design and living inside your head and trying to build things that are different because nobody makes logos like these. Aaron stands on his own, but his book is thick with just content of just absolute gold mines of stuff that he's created over the years. So like, yeah, that's what will inform your unique voice is thinking like that and not, ArtStation, YouTube. Sure, you get ideas from there, and it's good.
For sure you will find. But I agree with you. You need to have resources everywhere, and if we end up only all of us we are watching only ArtStation, we will still doing the same and the same and the same because our references are the same for everyone. So we need to enrich our experiences and our knowledge. And I'm thinking all the time, like the brain is a library, and you have resources. You never know from where you will pull out ideas.
Yes.
To do stuff.
Which I think is why AI, in a sense, can't yet really pose a threat in my eyes because it doesn't think outside the box at the moment. It thinks specifically inside the box. It trains on a data set that lives inside the internet, but there's things that live outside the internet that aren't within the internet. So, like, sure, like my sketchbook that I have filled with sketches, AI has no authority over that. Nothing's posted on.
But the difference between that and the AI is that the AI is only utilitarian.
Yes.
It's not in the service of creating beautiness as the artists do. Yeah, we as artists, as humans, we will be always creating something with aesthetic values and with soul and things. The AI will only create things that are functional, and we are not thinking never in the process. We don't care about what the process is. It's only the end result, and that's the big difference. But in the industries, they don't need the process, and they don't care about the process. They only need the end product. So that's why I'm thinking like, is a threat the AI?
I mean, I agree. 100% agree. It's a threat.
I don't know. I don't know when, and I don't know how. But
so I've interviewed both Steven Zapata and Carlo Ortiz, and they obviously have been fundamental in fighting it at the moment. I'm totally in their corner. I believe that. No, I'm not saying there's no a threat in the sense that it is a threat, obviously, but like, I don't want people to focus on it. I think, keep making art, keep living your life. There's people out there fighting the fight. So don't let it consume your every thought. But yeah, sure, like the ethical data sets, of course, are horrible. We need to sort all that out, and the people at Midjourney need to be held accountable. But like, yeah, there's plenty of art outside of the internet that you can focus on, and like you said, it's in the service. And I think what I've seen is going to be the trend, and we've kind of an extent talked about this in the Discord server I run, where a lot of the seniors and leads that have left have talked already about making their own thing, making their own studios. Like, I think that's what we're going to see on the wake of AI and capitalism going rampant in AAA. I think AA studios will appear everywhere. All the guys who were all the leads and the seniors there are going to be the guys who then form their own studios further down the line. I think that was my doorbell. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to pause. Yeah, so I think there will be a rise of all these independent studios that will pop up and people will start making their own stuff. But then, because they're artists that live for that experience and aren't AI, they will probably build these experiences that they'll focus on the human element. They'll want people to come and work for them that are artists and not prompters or stuff like that. So I think definitely it's going to have its place in the world at one point. I don't think we can run away from it at this point. It's going to be here. But we have the power. Yeah, we have the power as artists and developers to make our own thing, our own corner where we can work as well.
I guess that if companies start valuing people, if they really want to use AI as a secondary thing, not as the answer for everything, we're still having, because it's in power of companies that people are still having their jobs. But it's strange for me. It's harder for me. I don't know. I'm a septic guy, and it's hard for me to portray the future. because I don't even understand the present. In
Yeah.
the meaning that I don't know how you can. What I will say probably is horrible, but I don't know.
No.
I don't know how people can win money playing games and streaming themselves playing games.
No, of course not. It's a very new technology, and streaming in general is a thing. And
No,
yeah,
I
I
don't know
get
why.
it.
I don't know why you want to spend time watching someone playing games instead of
Yeah,
playing you the game.
yeah.
This is something that
It's
I don't understand, and it's my personal point of view.
yeah. I
So,
think it's no. On you go. On you go.
so I don't know. I don't know how it's possible that someone
Hmm.
is living or having a paycheck or covering their houses and their expenses or whatever at home, only streaming play video games.
Yeah,
It's something that
it's
I don't understand, but because I old.
yeah, no. But I think it's for me, the way I understood it and the way I've almost experienced it myself, being a wee bit younger, is a lot of people who were anti collective sports, so they wouldn't be into football, baseball, soccer, stuff like that. So they then went to their computer because that was their safe haven, and then they found other people who were like minded on the internet who played games like them, who could connect in a way. And you form what they call a parasocial relationship, where you form a relationship with someone who you don't have, you don't know them personally, but you understand them as a person. And it almost is like now with esports and stuff like that, as our version of football, soccer, baseball. There's a version of that where people play games and they watch and they get excited because you remember the excitement you had playing those games when you play them, and then seeing other people have that expression and that happiness as well fills a part of you. So understand that to an extent. I think sometimes it's difficult because I couldn't see any correlation in why people got excited to go to football stadiums and watch football and soccer people play. I thought that was always something I was never interested in. But my parents were heavily interested in soccer over here in the UK and always went to watch the matches. But I hated it. I didn't enjoy it. So, but then I could watch an esports game being played or watch somebody play a video game because that's been a bigger part of my life,
Mhm.
gaming in general. And so I get that sense of it. But with AI, I think is an extension of that where the media that we've created, the internet, conglomerate machine that's collected all this knowledge of images and experiences and stuff, and then now we're using technology that then extracts all that and puts it in a box. I think was something I saw coming for a long, long time. That's why I've probably also tried to curate my online presence in a sense as well and keep certain things off the internet because at one point that will just be all public property. People will be able to access all that stuff.
Mhm.
So it's a worrying world that we're kind of going into, but I think humans are very resilient people, and I think as much as we see bad media and bad actors in the world and things that are negative, and we can be pessimistic about stuff, there's also a lot of good people in the world,
Yeah,
that are trying their best to save it. So
yeah, I'm feeling that. Especially what I the most value of whatever I'm doing for the industry and I'm working for Blizzard is the team, the people I work with. They is
which is more difficult now after what's happened, recently as well, because that's obviously
yeah, that's what
yeah
that's what main reason what is difficult is because you really appreciate the people that were in the company and the quality of
the
humans
teams.
that work for Blizzard is a sad tragedy for
Yeah,
us.
difficult, very difficult time, and like I said, we're both the only people we know who are going through that, and it's fucking horrible. There's no other way to say it. It really is really bad. But decisions are made out with our control that people think are the best decisions for the company. But I remember we were also sharing Satoru Iwata, who was the former president of Nintendo in Japan, and when the Wii U wasn't doing well, or I think it was the 3DS, it was one of them. Rather than cut jobs, he took a salary cut. I think he cut his salary by half to balance the book out for the investors. And he talked about focusing on short-term profits over long-term development was always a risky move because the morale in those teams will never really fully recover.
Mhm.
And the games made from that morale, that low morale, sometimes will be reflected in the product. And it's not that you'll ever try to make an inferior product. It's just that when you don't have the same people around you, when the atmosphere has changed and never really will be the same, it's difficult to then make something you feel is authentic or pure because it isn't coming from the same place it came from when you had those people around you. Because like as a UI artist or guys in Blizzard, you maybe would have had lunch in Irvine at one point and spoke to somebody at lunch and said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this thing," and then like and drawing this thing, and you're like, "Oh," and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, well, what if you tried this?" And you bounce off people in the team internally and stuff like that, and you get ideas from different places, and people talk about life experiences that you draw on. But then when those people are gone, it's hard to think about, well, what if they'd been next to me when I was sketching or pitching something on Zoom, and they jumped in and thought about something, because they were always good with ideas. They always thought of stuff, but now that person's gone, so it's then hard to think. How's that going to be reflected in my work? How is it going to affect the team in general?
Yeah, so. In some way, I think that every experience has something in your unconscious brain, and we are not aware of the fully impact on your character with these kind of situations. And in my case, in my personal case, I will be, because even when I knew the day that happened, everything, I took a day off because I was not feeling well, and then I was I was resting, and then I took my phone and I was looking social media, and I was see something in Twitter, and I saw what happened.
Yeah.
So I turned on my machine, and I contact log in my computer and so on, and enter in contact with some people at Blizzard, and in here it was late, in the States was early morning, so I was my brain immediately was telling me, maybe you are one of those that lost a job, but you will not know until the next day.
Right. So the dust settles.
So and I was like panicking.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, you are sad because it's not only you that is affected, but for me was like the uncertainty of what's next. And especially because in my personal case, I am the only income at home. I'm the only person working, and
I know. Well, of course, if your income's taken away, then what the fuck do you do?
It's not easy, and I'm I don't know. There is a plenty of things, and I through my life I crossed to many difficult situations. So I am always. It's not that I am looking for what wrong will happen. It's just simply that sometimes I am thinking like, nothing is forever. Not even the best job or the best opportunities, or or even your health. I don't know. I cannot move as faster as before, or I cannot. I don't know. I need to use glasses now because I need to the screen or whatever. See, always is something happening in your life, and you cannot control things. So it's not that I am tragically preparing for the worst. It's simply that some part of me
always feels like you're unsettled.
Is saying, prepare yourself for the plan B, or something happen, what you will do, or if things don't go according to my estimations, what I will do. And that's why I am trying to always. One reason why I publish a lot of my work online and things is because I am trying to keep. I'm trying to keep tracking of my work,
relevant and stuff, and
it's a way to create channels, or to save myself, or probably my insecurities or whatever. But you never know.
I know, and that's why I think people are now talking seriously about unions and stuff, because you don't want to feel in a job, because it's a horrible way to live when you feel like you're constantly on edge, you're constantly worried about tomorrow and if I'm even going to have a job next week. And because I mean, Blizzard has had this whole thing that I knew about as well, where they hire for 10 years. Like, they usually took people on to be there long term. Like, they were never hiring people for short contracts. They would always try to get people to be there for a long time. And the fact that the biggest, I mean, Diablo was obviously, the team was hugely affected. I heard that the Diablo team was hugely decimated, but also the survival game that they were building was completely canned, and that's been gone now. That's been scrapped. So the whole team that were building that for the last 3 years are gone. And it's like, and that project will never see the light of day. And it's interesting with Blizzard when you think about it, of how Diablo has shipped, but then in Overwatch also in a sense, but like in the last 10 to 15 years, they've only maybe put out 2 games, because like, Warcraft has went on forever. And then of course, Overwatch was a game that was being worked on, but then was shifted into Overwatch from Titan. And, like, it's difficult with Blizzard, and and I don't want to talk too badly about them, of course, because they're your current employer. But it's like the management that was there obviously now are leaving and have moved on, and that's all changing. But yeah, I think a lot of bad decisions were made early on that are people like you and my friends are now paying for, and it's sad because you've done nothing wrong. You've just worked as hard as you wanted to work. And, people, I knew internally, and not that it was talked about often, but, when I spoke to people about the survival project, they were very excited about it, and loads of teams were, and it was really something really cool, and they were doing something different, and they really thought it was going to be great. To pour all those years into a game like that, and, it's never going to see the light of day, it's horrible. It's really, really horrible, because you want to share that part of you with the world, and like, look what I worked on, and look how cool it is, and it's amazing. And you were lucky in that sense. I think the Diablo saw the light of day. It got released.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially before you worked for Blizzard, because you were with that project that got canned as well. So it's like sometimes people have this rut of getting in the industry and working on stuff that never comes out,
Yeah.
and it's horrible.
Yeah, I know many people that worked in different projects and in different companies, and they only publish one project.
Yep.
And cancel 4 or 3. It's like, and it's an industry that I don't know, because it's harder to think in best practices, because it depends in there is a plenty of factors. If you think in, I don't know, let's say, it's harder for me to talk,
No. Yeah.
but because of my situation. But if I be thinking in abstract way, how much costs to run Blizzard? All the employees, the buildings, the electricity, the computers. How much cost in reality? Many things, and sometimes my personal feeling is that sometimes your ambitions are too, your dreams are too big, and you want to make many things and hire a lot
Yeah.
of people and make a lot of stuff and
Expanding too quickly.
but make projects that takes years and years, and probably some, life is, if in personal life it happened that you have a lot of different projects and only one succeed.
Yes.
In the companies happen the same. You have many takes, many projects, many things, and probably one or two succeed and the others not. And it's hard to measure things. I'm not justifying anyone, or because
No, no, no.
I'm not in brain of anyone.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, of course, the companies want to have a profit, but on the other hand, you need to think is
But it's profits over people.
the
That's the difficulty.
quality of the quality of your projects are reflect the quality of employees you have.
Yes.
If The Witcher was good, it's because the employees was good.
Yes.
If Diablo 4 is good, it's because the employees are good.
I mean, it's one of these things as well. I think Blizzard are on their own, like Riot, in a sense that they're a multi-game studio. They do multi-project games. Like, they aren't just focused on, like Sony Santa Monica, God of War. That's their game. That's the one thing they do, and they do it great. But Blizzard have Overwatch, StarCraft, Diablo, all these other IPs that come from one studio. So it's like, yeah, sure, not everything is treated or seen as equal, because Overwatch might have more players, Warcraft has more long-term players. Like, there's always this thing you're fighting with, because every team has their own thing going on. And Riot was the same, because they started with League of Legends, but then of course expanded into other games, and then that. So like, yeah, the problem I think also over COVID was the resurgence of people playing loads of games and being stuck inside. So they were pouring money more and more into video games, and then of course a lot of companies, including guys like Riot and stuff and Blizzard, maybe saw that as a way to hire more people and build more projects. And then when COVID has now gone and we're back to normal, the money has maybe dipped a little bit. Investors see that as a bad thing and then pull the plug on certain projects. It's happened for the last 20 years on video games. It's going to continue to happen, because art is never a safe option. Art is never a steady paycheck. It's one of these things that, like, some things will work, some things won't.
Yeah.
And it's just the way the world is, and it's difficult, but it's still, although I say that, it still is a human element. You're still dealing with people's lives.
Yeah. This is what is at stake, and that's why I want to, reinforce this concept of the humans. We need to save. We need to try to provide the best quality life possible for the employees, so they can perform the best. And if you are a happy employee, you will give things with love and with passion and all these things that in modern
100%.
times is like the request, and
Yeah.
uh,
We talked about that. We talked about like if a lot of these companies paid people even more money and gave them even better conditions, what would the games look like that they produced? Like if people were paid, if your salary was doubled overnight and you were given even more benefits and stuff, like how much harder would you work? How
yeah,
much more passion would you put into what you do versus being paid, maybe minimum wage and then
yeah,
having to do, so it's like, yeah, I think when people have all their basic needs met, they will definitely like produce better work
yeah,
versus being in an environment where you're tired, malnourished, hungry,
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good at business and I'm not good at many things, but I think that if companies, I don't know, if you make you owner of part of the company, even because you invest 8 hours of your day in something,
Yes.
and if you are, I don't know, in past they have this kind of ways to see that the employees have part of the company and they will have benefits from the company, and when you have the feeling that you this big corporation you have part on it, and if the company do well you will be doing very even well as well. So
Yes.
eh, I guess that this is a kind of solution, but I'm not the one that take decision, and I'm not the one
Yeah.
that
It's
I am
it's
just
difficult. Yeah, it's difficult in the EU because EU has regulations against people owning parts of the corporation. They
Mhm.
can't take stocks and stuff like that. But America, I know, like I know people in Santa Monica studios, they have a thing when they join, they get a share in the company. And if, like, I know for instance, because God of War, the recent one, done really well, their stock price went up,
No,
and
we in Blizzard we have we have benefits on the stocks, but
the
what I'm
ownership and
saying
stuff.
is something I don't know how to say that. It's
Yeah,
simply I don't know. I guess that we need to make the people feel part of the
yeah,
thing,
of
and
course.
not just
Yeah.
only employees.
I think it's also reducing team sizes as well because, like, I mean, when I worked in the studio in LA, like there was 10 of us, and when we were on Zoom calls, I could actually contribute to game design and talk about ideas I thought were really cool that actually got implemented into the game because there's only 10 of us on Zoom, right? So if one of us has got an idea, it's
Yeah.
more heard versus there's a UI team, there's a concept team, there's an environment team. Within the environment team, there's 40 people, there's a
Hmm.
lead. Like so when you get to those numbers, you kind of get lost in the
Yeah.
structure because
Yeah.
there's so many
Yeah.
people. So yeah, I think the idea of, like I talked about, the indie studios and people making their own stuff in smaller, portions. I think we'll see more of that because
That's my feeling because video games industry are creating huge and complex games that cost a lot to maintain in time, and at the end of the day, you don't know if you will be successful or not.
yep, it's not like film.
And the other thing is that more and more people are studying computer science and video game uh, things, and I see a lot of new UI artists and more concept artists and more people want to work in the industry. And we don't have 20 Blizzards, we don't have 20 Riots, we don't have 20, you know. And so people will start to join together, make small jams, game jams, and create
Yep, yep.
indie games and things like that.
There's so many even recent indie games that have went viral and have, like, I mean, Among Us obviously years ago went super viral and everybody plays that, but stuff like Lethal Company that came out recently where, artistically, it doesn't look the greatest, but the simplistic of the game design is what's drawn people to it. And it's like, yeah, the graphics don't matter as much. People have fun playing it and you can play it with your friends.
Hmm.
There's more a sense of like people want to play community, almost what Diablo had as well because it's 4-player co-op. But like, yeah, there's a whole thing of like, yeah, like this realm of indie games that are now coming out where people don't have to spend millions to make a game. But I mean, oh God, generations ago, we're talking maybe 20 years ago, when that small team in Sweden, I think, made Angry Birds,
Yeah.
and it was like 5 people, and then it took over. There's been movies about it and everything, video games, movies. Like you don't have to pour 300-400 million into a game to really make it successful. The people will make it successful, not the budget. And I understand with games like, Insomniac's budget in the recent leaks came out about how Spider-Man, I think, or one of the games was $300 million, and people were like, "How the fuck are you spending $300 million?" And they're like,
Hmm.
"Well, 150 people for 4 years,
Yeah.
an average 150,000 a year wage. That's easily 3 million,
Yeah.
300 million of it. So, and then studio costs, executive, like people don't realize the money that goes into these games,
Hmm.
but It doesn't mean that every game has to be made like that. And, one of these things is we need to break up the industry and it be less, one huge company or two or three huge companies. Back in the PlayStation era when that was first made, they had what they called shovelware, where people were making games every other month and they were making shittier games. They weren't AAA quality, but they were sometimes like crap. But then there was these gems that were like in the middle where they weren't quite AAA, but they weren't quite crap. They were good games that were made by a couple of people. So yeah, we're probably going to go back to that, and I think it's a good thing because, like I say, with sustainability, the model for games every year on year having to turn a profit or grow annually by 5%, it's just not realistic because nothing is infinite. You can't continually grow things every single year.
Mm-hmm.
There will be years where, it earns 0.1% or it goes down a little bit or up a bit. It's the medium of life because people will have more money. And even that, like the way the world is now with cost of living, people have less money to spend in video games. So of course they're buying less video games because, they don't have enough money. They don't have enough money to buy a new game a month. So yeah, I think the AAA space will be shooken a little bit with the AA mentality of people coming and forming their own studios and making their own thing again.
Yeah, but I have this feeling, and people are being laid off, so there is a plenty of ideas that many employees want to create their own studios and try to do things in different way in order to save work for people. But I don't know. There is a plenty of room for different takes, and anyway, it's hard for me. Yeah, it's hard for me to think about what could be a good solution for the industry and for people.
I don't think anybody has a solution right now. It's a very complex problem that I think is going to take a bit of a while for people to work out.
And I guess that the answer will come from different things. There is no only one directional answer. It will come from the economics, from technology that the people are using, from how many people really need in the teams, and there's plenty of perspectives that will benefit to the answer. But I don't think that is only unidirectional.
Yes. I don't think there's going to be one, like you said, one solution. I think, 3 people from Blizzard might form off and make one company that makes a game. 30 other people might make a company. Like, there's companies in LA, especially like That's No Moon, who were guys who were ex-Naughty Dog and stuff who've formed their own thing now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, obviously. But yeah, the talent there even is incredible. But yeah, like I think the trick is not making anything too big and feeling like you said, you can infinitely expand. You can make more and more games or bigger and bigger things. There's a good appreciation in a life where you can kind of just mediate on a line where you make a good game, then you make another good game, and you don't go like you make a good game, then you hire 500 extra people and try and make it a brilliant game.
Yep.
Just try and maintain the level of making good games consistently, and that would be more sustainable.
That's my personal take on that. Whatever I'm saying, I'm not is my personal view always, and I'm not taking the voice of the companies I work for or the projects I work for, and I think that I guess that companies need to start in how create this kind of situations where you can having a good an okay project is okay, and if you are successful, you don't need to start thinking like we need to hire more people and more things, and because running more companies, you need to have more spaces, more offices, more taxes, more whatever, everything more. So you need more money, you need more revenue, and you need to profit more, and
I mean, we've talked, which we can totally talk about, because when I interviewed Marek recently, which was last year, I think, because I interviewed him after he'd done Witcher 3 and then interviewed him after Cyberpunk, and he was very open about CD Projekt grew too quickly. Their eyes were bigger than their stomach. They had an idea that they were going to do this amazing game and it was going to be all this bells and whistles and incredible. But because they maybe jumped before they could run, like they made The Witcher 3, great, fantastic. Try and make a game again like The Witcher, but maybe don't crunch as much. Then try and maybe pay a bit more attention to detail and maybe make things a bit. But the idea was like, right, we're going to make Cyberpunk. It's going to be as good as Grand Theft Auto. It's going to be twice the size. We might only have 200-300 people working here, but we're going to make this incredible thing. And that was the downfall, because then Cyberpunk came out and it was glitchy and everything was wrong and the reviews were horrible. And yeah, the idea there was that like if they had being more realistic with the projections as well. Like, it's not going to come out in 2018. It's going to come out in 2025. It's going to, like, take the time to make, because at the moment, Grand Theft Auto 6 has just been, the trailer's just been out. It's coming out next year, so 2025, I think. So, another year still to wait. Rockstar are very good at being realistic with their expectations, and like, it's not ready yet. It's not going to be ready for another year. It's nowhere near finished. We need a year to polish it. We can't release it right now, even though people are foaming at the mouth every time there's a trailer that comes out of Grand Theft Auto. They're always of the. I mean, they're in a unique position where they have so much money they can take their time. Obviously, I understand that, but like, I think if more studios adopted that mentality of, it will be done when it's done, it will be finished when it's finished. Let us have our time. Let us make it good. That would go way further in sustainability also.
Yeah, but this is the model business. You need to say when game will be available, and then you need to start making pre-sales and like, I don't know. There is
it's the capitalistic society idea of that, like you say, profits, margins, money over people. Yeah.
Before you see the game when you saw it in the stores, before it was not announced. You just see the game there.
Oh yeah, I grew up in the very early. I grew up in the 90s, so yeah, seeing games I'd never heard of, and then you just see a box, and you're like, oh, it looks really interesting, and you'd look at it and be like, oh, I'll go play that.
And the industry is so crazy that even you have
trailers, pre-orders,
and the industry is so crazy that you have prices. The video game industry is giving prices for the best pre-sale or the best trailer or the best without knowing what is the game about, without but they win prizes, and they are it's like
it's difficult, I think, as well with stuff like BlizzCon as well, because they've almost fallen into the E3 trap of, like, because BlizzCon is now a yearly event, you have to have something to show every year. Like, every year there needs to be a trailer, there needs to be an update, there needs to be new content or a DLC. Like, it's very unlike Blizzard now to go years without announcing anything, where that used to be what Blizzard done was, they'd release something and then be like, oh, well, we're working on something, but we're not ready to talk about it. But now at BlizzCon every year, it's like, well, what's the trailer going to be? What's the expansion for Hearthstone? Are they going to add a new hero for Overwatch? It has to be constantly something new every single year, and that's in itself a trap, because then you're constantly chasing that cycle of releasing stuff every year.
I think that this is the nature of having games that have a long-term life.
The live service games,
you need to do something new for the game to keep it alive, but when you have I don't know, another kind of game that have only one run, and you have the game is an experience and not just coming back.
To talk on that as well is like something like Larian Studios, who made Baldur's Gate 3. They again took their time with it. A small studio. I say small, they're 200 people, but still it's a smaller studio.
It's small.
Yeah. But then, like, the years they took to polish that, and even I think it was in early access for something close to 3 years. But now that it's been released and it's feature rich, it's full, there's no DLC, there's no add-ons, everything is in the game. That has outperformed and outsold most games because it's such a more fuller package, and people lovingly took time to make that incredible and amazing, and thousands of hours of dialogue and writing, and and that was from a smaller studio and smaller budget, but like because they took the time to make it incredible, because they didn't follow the trend, they didn't do live service, they wanted to make a game in a sense like what Witcher was, where when it was released, the game was the game, everything was in the game, you weren't chasing DLCs and downloads. But it shows when games like that come out, people respond super positively to them. They're really enthralled about, like, oh my god, it's feature rich and it's got all this stuff in it, hours and hours of content, I can play it for hundreds of hours, and versus, like you said, the live service stuff that lives off the back of content being pushed out every year.
But again, it depends in the game, depends in the model business, depending the gameplay, there is a plenty of variables that make every case unique. And again, I'm just
I know what you mean. I think we're thinking all the same way. You're the guy making the pretty pictures, the small icons. I get it. Right, okay, so we're passing 2 hours now. I think at this point people will probably get sick of listening to us talk, but like, but like no, I think it's been a really engaging conversation. I think even that extra hour we done at the end, where we, I think this is now the way the podcast has went the last couple of years, where I'm less concerned about how do you draw, how do you make UI. We started the podcast like that. We talked about the layoffs, about the human element in art. That's what I think people respond to, because they're less concerned about, because you can go and get a tutorial from anywhere and learn how to draw.
Go on YouTube and you have all the tutorials.
So it's like, you want to listen to designers talk about their experience in the industry, how they felt about, and honestly, thank you very much for being honest about your struggle in your life and how it was hard and stuff, because I think like that's what people have talked about. When I get letters from students and emails, they talk about, thank you for being vulnerable, thank you for talking about how difficult it is, how hard it is to get in the industry, how this is really a problem, because people want to avoid that subject constantly. They don't want to talk about wages or crunch or overtime or people getting laid off. I was even in two minds about talking about the layoffs, but like I felt like I couldn't ignore it. Like there's too much going on in the world to just glance over that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we're both directly affected. I mean, less me, obviously. I know a couple of people who are friends, but like you work at the company that it's happened at. Yeah. Those people were your colleagues. Yeah. Like I felt like we had to say something. We had to say anything just to acknowledge that it happened. You know, and it's.
I mean, you cannot blind the sun. It's like
it's
impossible.
In front of you. Yeah, people are going through shit right now, and I think it's very almost irresponsible to ignore it, and not talk about it, because like, it's such a huge part of what's happened the last couple of weeks, and we're all from it. So, Okay, right. So, again, Fernando, thank you for coming on. It has been great talking to you, genuinely. Like, I handpick my guests to think about people that will give me an interesting conversation, and I think every time people surprise me, but I have enjoyed the human connection we've had by talking. I think it's been really interesting and really awesome to talk about life in general and how that's affected us as artists. I think it's really incredible and important for younger people to really cling to, is the human element in the room. If you've listened to this point, thank you very much for I'm sure you'll try and put it on in the background or take it in chunks, but I think it's one of these things that these conversations that we have in the podcast are always unique and great, and I think people do benefit from them. So again, I thank you for coming on, Fernando, and for people for listening and stuff. So I'll leave a link to Fernando's work, of course, and all the resources that he thinks will be relevant. Of course, I'll post them all down below. You guys can check them out. You can find his work on Behance. I'll add that as well. And I'm sure if you want to get in touch, Fernando will be able to, he'll leave me an email or a way to get in touch if people want to get in touch and talk about UI or games or whatever. Check out Diablo 4, of course. Check out the stuff from Blizzard, and check out his work. And we have other podcasts, other episodes. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of stuff, and of course YouTube, where we have a video podcast as well as Spotify. So check all that stuff out as well. And again, thanks to Fernando, thanks for you guys for listening, and we will see you all in the next episode. Hope you guys are having a great time and staying safe, and bye.